Welcome to the AI Preview Show with me, Davey B, Bomber McCormack and Dylan Fitzsimons. We're going to be previewing the Con and Annie Kirby Memorial Heats on Saturday night. Lads, what do you think of the card?
Then I'll let you go first. Then.
Obviously, it's a brilliant card. The sponsorship for the competition's arguably the second best sponsorship of any competition in greyhound racing on this side of the world anyway. McManus is obviously give generously to provide an 80,000 draw to the winner prize stake. It just brings out the best dogs in the country. The card's complicated because obviously there's dogs with 10, 15 runs that have form in the book, and there's other dogs that are unraced. I mean, I think there's 7 or 8 unraced dogs maybe. There's probably 20 dogs that you can count their runs on one hand. So you'll learn a lot more after the first round. The first 3 go through, and then you have 9 of the fourth. So there's a fair chance you'll see a dog you like in the first round that's there the second night if they run anyway well.
Connor, what are your thoughts? Or Bomber?
Yeah, I think it's become a major part of the grading calendar nowadays. Like Dylan said, it's an €80,000 to the prize winner. So it's just such a big stake, and when you have a 2019 whelp this year, you're aiming them for the Kirby. It's all about if you can have a really good pup. It used to be about a Derby dog, and now it's about a Kirby dog. And any pup that's like a January to like a June, you can basically de-age that suits the Kirby type. And lads go to Tralee now and Clonmel, these big unraced stakes to see if they have a dog good enough to run the Kirby. And the McManus family have just put massive money into it in the last 4 or 5 years. I think I remember when I first got on greyhound racing, it used to be like a 5,000 to the winner stake. And I remember there was a couple of good years, like when Ollie Bray and there was a couple like Royal Div and them types were in it. And I think it was Owen McKenna's dogs was the first dog to win the big prize. I think it was Rock's Home Bully. I could be wrong on that. I can't think of his name exactly, but the likes of you have Cable Bay and just top dogs. And if you look back at the finals and the semi-finals, just the best dogs in the country end up in the Kirby final because of the prize money. And when you look at the English Derby last year, it was 50,000 to the winner, and the Kirby's €80,000. So it's just the prestige in that, and you can see it's the reflection of the 78 dogs that are in the stake. And I've no doubt that the Derby winner would be in this competition.
I'm certainly looking forward to watching myself, because it's definitely going to be better than watching anything over this side of the water on Saturday night.
Well, that's not saying too much these days, Davey, is it? Unfortunately.
No, not at all.
Running down the English. Didn't take Dylan too long to run down the English dogs anyway.
Let's get into the action and check out the first heat. I'll just share the screen. So heat 1, Explosive Boy in 1, Roval Star in 2, Billish Tudor in 3, Victor in 4, Envoy in 5, and Cloner Bolt in 6. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I made this race a match race. I sided with Explosive Boy in Trap 1, just purely from an early pace perspective. I mean, the Heffernan did some fairly bad luck in this now. 2 of their entries have ended up beside each other since the Garden's been done away with by the GRI a few months ago. You couldn't make it up. They're both massive price in the seat. They're great at dogs at the minute, stepping in against 2 of the best pups in the competition, an Explosive Boy and Clone Boat 600-yard run. The last race on Easter Cup card, the track was very slow at that stage. There were puddles everywhere. It looked quite loose. I think he did 32.76. I mean, I'd happily go on record and say that was the best 600-yard run I've seen in Shelburne for years. On any semblance of a fast track, he could have went very, very close to 32 seconds, which is effectively unheard of these days. Maybe once or twice a year. They made the decision to dodge the 600-yard stake in Shelburne for Kirby, which obviously makes sense for the prize money that the McManus are putting up for the Kirby. But I just thought Explosive Boy was foot perfect last week. He's won a few decent sprints down in Thurles. He can lead into the first spin. It's a big ass down in the limit for a dog to come behind. Since Tommy Botton's down there down the track, it's been absolutely rattling. I'd say you'll want to be off the front on Saturday night, especially in the early races. So it's anything like Shelburne was in the summer when he was doing the track.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 1 is Trap 1, Explosive Boy. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, look, I think this heat kind of reflects how good the Kirby is overall. Like, there's 5 dogs in this heat. They're seriously proper dogs. I think Explosive Boy is a good draw on 1. I just think he's in the right box. He's on the inside of Rural Star, who, he was in the Clonmel race stake. He's a proper fast dog as well. I just think Rural Star at the moment, what I've seen of him, he's maybe 5 or 10 spots short at the boxes on that first split just to get himself in the race. He would usually, I would say, would have to lead most races to win. And I think Explosive Boy just has a number, and the draw on the inside is going to be hard for him to kind of come from it. But he could improve at the boxes, but I know they think a lot of him. But I just agree with Dylan. I think 6 is run on the Easter Cup final night for a pup. Clone of both just to come into Shelburne Park. He was never around the track. 32.70 on a slow track. On a normal track it'd be a decent run, and if taking 50 off, it's 32.20, which it's whatever 20 spots off the clock. I think Local Duke done 31.90 one night, but it's just one of them runs that you see something special, and I'm going to go with Clone of both just in the draw. I think he's a great draw on 6. If 1 and 2 get each other's way, and 3's also a fast pup. He came from Dundalk. He done 21.80 in his debut. But it's a lot to ask for him coming out of a pup stake, and he's moved Ken on it to Graham Holland, and I think Mark Wallace and connections have him now, but they own him, but Holland's training him. But it's just 21.18 is as good as a debut you can do around there, but he's just stepping up a mile in grade, and he's probably in the heat of death, But I just think the Clone of both dog is something special about him. He done 28.23 in his first look at the track in the trial, so I think that tells you alone how good he is. And I think Explosive Boy is going to go a long way in competition. I think he's one of the best early pace dogs. He done 17.60 on the clock in Thurles, which is like, anyone knows the sprints around there is an unbelievable run. So it's just one of them heats you're going to have. A lot more after the heat, but I just think Clone of both has a great draw on 6. I think Explosive Boy and Rural Star probably have to beat each other, and he might just get a dream run around and show what he's made of. But I'll go with Clone of Star anyway.
Clone of Bolt, yeah?
Clone of both, sorry, Clone of both.
So Bomber's fancy for Heat 1 is Trap 6, Clone of Bolt. Heat 2, we've got Appreciate It in 1, Navy Blue in 2, Glengar Masher in 3, Ballymac Merlin in 4, Wakiki Bomber in 5, and in 6, Racket Hole Leo. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
Well, just come down on the side of Trap 6, Racket Hole Leo, purely from a likely price perspective. He's liable to be 4 or 5 to 1 in this heat. He's a January 19 dog, so he's as old as you can get in the Kirby races. He's still a maiden, which obviously isn't ideal, but I didn't think this was the strongest heat in the Kirby now at all. Ballymac Merlin's coming straight out of Tralee, where he showed a lot of pace, but he might just struggle from 4, I imagine. 5 is really coming across early as well. He's an early pace dog of Peter Cronin's. 6 is a big 90-pound dog. That's obviously why he started off so late in his career. He still looked green on his last 2 starts. I mean, he qualified in 29.25 with 40 off in Thurles. He has a massive engine in his big frame, and I thought he's been presented an unbelievable draw to just get one head of steam at these here. I mean, it's probably not a big price he leads around. The top doesn't go to the bend. 2 was hit and miss at the boxes, and he didn't win the A3 stake he was in. He's since moved to Graham Holland. 3 is at the 1 race in Yall. This is a massive step up in grade. And then 4 obviously ran in Tralee, and 5 is getting a huge hike up in grade, and he's very badly drawn. So I thought you could make a case for 6. They'll run at the corner, and he's a very fast dog from the second bend home.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 2 is Trap 6, Racket Hole Leo. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting heat, to be fair. there's a lot of unexposed types probably in this heat. I know the two dog done 28.40 in Shelburne, and he was bought for a good bit of money now, to be fair. Looked a good run the night in that A3 stake. But as Dylan said, I'm not sure if he moved Kennel or not after that night. I think he might have moved after the night he won. No, I'm not 100% sure on that. But he kind of disappointed the next two nights. You know, he came from off the pace to win 29 seconds on the slowest track, and then he got beat in the final. But off his breeding, like he's a half brother to Slippy Keane, who was in the final of the Derby, and he was in the final of Kirby as well, and Lenson Blinder and those types. So, you know, they're strong running greyhounds. He's liable to improve Graham Holland after a few weeks. He's probably only settling in. I think he's well drawn actually in this heat if he was up to his best. You know, I don't think he's well drawn between 1 and 3. Like, 3's very inexperienced and coming up a mile in grade. I think it's A4 at the moment, you know, in an AEO stake. Like, so the dog I fancy is Ballymac Merlin. I'll take Dylan on this heat. I just think this could be one of Down's best dogs in the next few weeks, next few months. He does edge in, but he won the first round of Tralee, and to be fair, what this grade have mostly ran in, it's just different class. He done 18.78 in the sprint in Limerick back before Tralee. I know Liam Dowling comes to Limerick. He's done it with a few dogs where he comes to Limerick for a sprint or a 5-5 trial before Tralee to get them to look around Limerick before the Juvenile Classic because it's close to Kirby. He done 18.78. He bet a bitch, I think, 7 or 8 lengths in that sprint. And she went into Clonmel and done one of the fastest first round runs. So I think he's a fair dog. I think he's going to probably prove himself during the stake. And I'll take Dylan on to see with Ballymac Merlin anyway.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 2 is Trap 4, Ballymac Merlin. Heat 3, we have got Angry Dad in 1, Good Cody in 2, Ballymac Belvoot in 3, Low Huron in 4, Deadly Destroyer in 5, and in 6, all for the best. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I thought 5 would win the seat. I mean, there's 2 very talented young dogs in the heat, and Trap 2 and 3, Good Cody and Ballymac Belvoot for John Kennedy and Liam Dowling. I think they probably both have the potential to be every bit as good as 5, if not better in time. But 5's a hardened race dog now. He won the Cork Gun race that Ballymac cash out at. That was in. He won the Kirby trial stake emphatically last week in Shelburne. I think he's ideally drawn. All for the best in 6s, as wide as houses. He's really not been turning the bends at all recently. And he also doesn't go to the corner and fight the 5s. And the lower run dog in 4 is a big 90-pound dog that wants the fence. He was edging left from 3 and 4 in Tralee. No, not majorly, gradually goes across. Ballymac Belvolt wants the fence, he's heading across as well. Good Cody has good early pace, and the top looks a small bit out of his depth at this stage. Obviously, any dog in this competition has a chance to come on and be a top-class dog in the coming weeks. But just from what's on his card, when the novice race and getting beaten in A2 in Waterford, leaves a lot to be desired against the likes of Deadly Destroyer. I thought Deadly Destroyer nearly merited having a middle seat in this competition, just getting out of trouble. When he's on the fence, he moves bang off into the middle. He has very good early pace, and if he leads this, there's not many in training that'll come from behind him. So I think it's worked out well this night from 5. If you was to draw a red next week, you'd want to be closing your eyes if you were in 2. But any semblance of a level start here. And I think Deadly Destroyer will lead around quite comfortably, and the Ballymac dog in 3 can follow him home for second.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 3 is Trap 5, Deadly Destroyer. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, I think this is another really good heat as well. Dylan said you have Good Cody and Ballymac Belvolt coming out Tralee, and they could just be anything in the next few weeks, next few months. I really like the Good Cody dog. I think there's just something about him. I think the most interesting part about him is he's only in October, so I think he's the second youngest dog in the stake. I think there's one bitch that's younger than him. You know, he won the first round or second round Tralee in 28.50 or 20. He was beaten only half a length by Sing Along Sally, and he was only 16 months old at that time. You know, he's taken on Januaries and Februaries and Marches on in Tralee, and he was going with them. He done a 3:04 section, I think, as well. So Dylan says he's got early pace. His trial surprised me the last day. He done 28.60 when, there's a couple of dogs going 28.10s and better and 28.20s. But he's only a pup. I think he can improve. I don't know if you're going to see the best on Saturday night, but I just think there's a lot about this dog. Ballymac Belvote, look, he ran up the Juvenile Classic. He's a classy dog as well. Strong running type. He's going to be hard to beat and probably he's going to qualify. Hard to knock out anyway in the stake. Liam Download, he thinks a lot of him. He's keeping him anyway. And, look, he's going to be hard to beat. As Dylan says, the fight, look, Deadly Destroyer is a hardened dog. He's proved himself in AAO class. His run on the Easter Cup final night was a serious run. I think it was 28:30 on the slowest track. It was hit and miss the track on the night, but I just think at the prices he's going to be, I'm going to go Good Cody. He'd probably be decent price on the night. If I had to pick one for competition that I'd have, like the one that you thought was definitely going to win, I'd probably pick Deadly Destroyer on his experience. But the one thing about Deadly Destroyer, I don't think he was ever around Limerick. So, at least Good Cody has been around, and I'm sure Ballymac Belvote has been around, but the fact that Deadly Destroyer has been running Shelburne the last few weeks, I doubt he's been in for a trial. So, look, I'll go with Good Cody on the prices, but Deadly Destroyer probably hard to beat on the night.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 3 is Trap 2, Good Cody. Heat 4, we've got Stone Park Leo in 1, Sing Along Sally in 2, Those Days Are Gone in 3, Luminous Light in 4, Medusa in 5, and in 6, Hazel Hill Kelso. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
Just purely from a selection basis, Sing Along Sally should win this race. She won the Juvenile Classic in Tralee. She took off in her first look around Limerick last week in the trial, 28:29. I don't think any of the rest in this field would see the colour that the dog in 6 is brilliant draw, Hazel Hill Kelso, Fiza Bangrailer, and she's quite a fast starter as well for John Byrne. But it's not impossible to make a case against Sing Along Sally here. Well, she's desperate for the fence. She showed in Tralee she can get around that, and that was with a better class of dog than she comes up against tonight. The Stone Park dog in 1 is very interesting. I mean, when the O'Donovans bring a dog to any stake, you raise your eyebrows. This lad's A3 running in the Kirby. It's not a typical entry from that kennel. You'd have to imagine he's pulling up trees somewhere now. 17:50 sprint in Waterford was impressive. Yeah, showed a nice turn of foot up the home straight that day. Just there's very limited form on offer, but when he ran from 1 on debut, he definitely came off the fence. So if you were looking to get 2 beat, that might be your angle. The top has a bit of early pace. He's moving off. She's heading left, but to be honest, she could win this from behind as well. 4 has a few massive trial runs on his card before he raced. He did 16:49 in Kilkenny, which would suggest he has some early pace, and he did 28:40 in Shelburne. But his 2 races, albeit an extremely hot company, he hasn't been able to show a huge amount anywhere. But again, he's a dog that if he ever saw the front, he'd definitely put up a big clock somewhere.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 4 is Trap 2, Sing Along Sally. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, look, I think Dylan pretty much summed up that heat pretty well. Look, Sing Along Sally, I think he can't oppose her. She won the Juvenile Classic. Dylan said she was in 4 that night in better company, and she somehow got across. I don't think 2 in this race would be too hard to get on the fence. She's just a class act. As he said, Dylan said, the Stone Park dog is an interesting one. I've seen Michael Donovan race my whole life, and I've never seen him. He entered the dog for an A3 stake in Shelburne last week on the Tuesday night, and he was in the draw, or 2 weeks ago, he was in the draw and he withdrew him. And next thing he's in the Kirby. Now, for me, that means he done a serious private trial around Limerick or Clonmel or something. So he obviously has more ability than his card is showing. The 17:50 sprint in Waterford's a fair run. As Dylan said, I don't think he beats Sing Along Sally. He's not going to beat Sing Along Sally, but that shows why he should be there. And I've no doubt that if Michael Donovan entered this dog in the Kirby, there's a serious run this dog can do. So, look, you have to go for Sing Along Sally, but he's one to watch out for. The Luminous dog is also interesting as well. I know the Lennons. There's the Lack and the Luminous and the Lemon crowd there, the 3 Lennon brothers, and this is a really promising dog. He's some really fast trials in his card in Shelburne. I know they thought a lot of him going before Tralee, and it just didn't work out. And you see what happened with Clona Bolt and all them. You get knocked out the first round Tralee. Fast run somewhere else, so as Dylan said, he went straight into the Kirby trial stakes and Tralee, and he went into the Kirby trial stake after, and he's obviously a really promising dog. He hasn't got to show it yet, but I think he probably will show something in the heat. Sing along Sally will probably go on a better business, but I'll be watching out for 104 just for future heats and that. So I'll go Sing along Sally anyway.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 4 is Trap 2, Sing Along Sally. Heat 5, we've got Romeo Magico in 1, Flyers Iniesta in 2, Permanent Smile in 3, Only Perfection in 4, Derby's Delight in 5, and in 6, Rock Along Rocket. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I'd be really strong on Romeo Magico here. I've put him in quite short, extremely short, actually. This dog done 17.39 in Tralee before the Juvenile Classic. It's probably the best sprint mark on any dog's card in Tralee for a few years now that I've seen anyway. The track in Tralee certainly wasn't running fast in December, January. I mean, talking to a trainer down there, he said he thought it was probably 20 or 30 back for the sprint for about 2 months solid. So the fact this dog came out and did that tells you all you need to know about him. He has an engine as big as any dog in this Kirby, in my opinion. On the same day, he did 17.39 Zoom. The sensational early pace dog in the Juvenile Classic was a full length slower, 17.46 on a track rate of 10 slow. He got a lot of trouble in Tralee on his first start. He got messed about a bit, then he got withdrawn. I imagine he might have just picked up a small niggle. He really got nigh on put on the floor at the third bend when he was flying behind Broadstrand Ryan, who I think was the fastest heat winner. Last week he was behind Macho Pride in a A3 around Limerick, but that was an A3 and all but name. That may as well have been a Kirby trial stake. There were 3 dogs with open class sprint marks on their card. Gary Silcock had the winner, Macho Pride, who's in the stake. He's an extremely fast dog. He did 21.32 on debut on Dundalk, which is a fair run, a very fair run up there the way that track's been run as well. But I think Romeo Magico was good. He was good for about 6 lengths on him last week. Inexperience cost him now. Missed the break. He edged off a tad from 3, which is away from 1, but 2's the next wide runner. I have 2 moving bang right early. I have 3 moving bang right early. 4's unraced. 5, 1 and 8, 3 in Shelburne. I'd be amazed at that one. And the 6 is an A3, A2 sort of dog down in Limerick. Obviously only a young dog liable to come on with a good draw, but I'm not going to be at all surprised if Romeo Magico leads here and he does one of the fastest runs in the first round of the Kirby. I think he's that good. I think he's been completely underestimated in every market he's in.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 5 is Trap 1, Romeo Magico. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, look, I agree with Dylan. I think this is nap material, this dog. Dylan summed it up there. He done 17.30 in Tralee, which is an unbelievable run. On the same trial session as Zoom, he was doing his clocks to third bench Tralee were on their own, So, look, this is a special greyhound. I know Graham Holland thinks a lot of him, from what I'm told from people who. He ran in an A3 last week, but Dylan said there was Gary Silcock's dog from Dundalk. Was in the race, Macho Pride, and there's the Tullig dog who's not in the stake. Actually, I noticed he's not in the stake, but he had 28.50 on his card as well. So, he done open sprint, so it was an A3 race, but it may as well have been the Kirby trial stake. It's a much better race probably than this heat here. To be fair, there's a couple of unraced dogs and dogs with 1 or 2 races as well. So, look, I think Romeo Magico's nap material. He's probably going to go off very short. I think he was trading a bit bigger the last few days. I think it was quickly taken up. So, look, I don't think this is just a dog that's going to win this heat. I think this is a dog that can really threaten in the Kirby if it all comes together. And I'm actually glad he's got a heat like this the first round. That he probably needs that win under his belt and just a bit of experience, And I think he could see some special things from this dog.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 5 is Trap 1, Romeo Magico. Heat 6, we've got Vigorous Buck in 1, Jacob Tashadelic in 2, I've Everything in 3, Where I Am in 4, Billy's Diva in 5, and in 6, Ballymac Ariel. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I'll side against, and I've said previous with Ballymac Ariel here against Billy's Diva. I'm a huge Billy's Diva fan. I was always looking to be against Ballymac Ariel when they were running in Shelburne. But the application of a middle seat to Ballymac Ariel is the difference here, in my opinion. I mean, I think the Talking Dogs on TV is starting on Saturday night. It's €10. You pay twice that to watch this race alone. You pay twice that to watch these two bitches run at any track over any trip in the country, and even more when they're running against each other. These are arguably the two best dogs, regardless of the fact that bitches. You just have to hope neither of them end up breaking into season during the stake. It'd be a real shame if they had to be pulled out for that at any point. They're both liable to make the final. I think Ballymac, they're both liable to win the stake. I fully expect a dog to break the 28-second barrier on the stake, and I would not at all be surprised if Ballymac Ariel was to do 27, 85 or 90 in this heat. She's a brilliant makeup. 4's a dead railer, 5's heading left, and Billy Steve is a smarter trapper than Ballymac Ariel, but she is heading left from 5. I think Ariel doesn't want 6, and since she's a middle seat, she's guaranteed 6 every night. The only bonus with that is if she's in 6 every night, she's a railer in 5. So I think it'll still suit her. The Jacob Tashadelic dog was a big runner down in Tralee. He was flying to halfway, even a little bit less than halfway. 5 to 5 is as far as he wants in this company. But it's not a long shot to think he might just lead them out in this race. He was leading serious dogs down in Tralee. It's just a big ask running against these two bitches. You know, there's probably only 1 or 2 dogs in the stake you could make a case to beat these two bitches in the form they're in. But I thought Ariel can exact some revenge on Billy Steva. But when they reached their cup race, I mean, Ariel won the cup final in Shelburne. Billy Steva had a lot of mercy when Explosive Boy ran into her. I think Billy Steva went off 4 to 7 that night, nearly 2s on maybe. I expect that to be fully reversed in prices this week. I think Ballymac Ariel will represent a 4 to 7 or 2s on shot at the off. Billy Steva could be 6 to 4, 7 to 4, and whoever leads out of these two will win the race. Neither of them will ever back run each other, in my opinion. So it's a race to savour, all right.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 6 is Trap 6. Ballymac Ariel. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, look, as Dylan said, this is the race on the card. You know, this is what the first round's all about. Billy Steva taking on Ballymac Ariel. Like, it looks like it's a match race on paper. So, Billy Steva is probably badly drawn in 5. I'm not so sure about Ballymac Ariel being the middle seed. It might give her more runs, but I've never seen enough for us to suggest that she wants to be out, and like she's going to be out in 5 and 6 most nights. Probably 6, the way there's only, I think, 5 wide seeds and 8 middle seeds in the competition. So it's an interesting choice. I'm not 100% sure about it, but it's worth taking a chance. Anyway, you'll see how it suits Ballymac Ariel on the first night. She's taking on probably the best opposition you can to see how she'll run from out there. So I'll tell you a lot about it. Look, Billy Steva, I don't remember a bitch from when I've gone racing that ever ran so well in the Easter Cup like that, and at that age as well. She's just something special. Like Ballymac Ariel, people forget, like, she did run in the Easter Cup as well, and she didn't really get to the front, and you know, she was in with dogs as well. But Billy Steva went out and she, bar the first round, she just went out and she led the dogs and she just bet them for pace everywhere. So I think Billy Steva just has that extra bit of early pace, like that extra few spots to the bend. Like you're looking at Ariel splits there and she's doing 53s and 58s and stuff, and Billy Steve's doing 40s, you know. So it's hard to know. Look, I think the race will tell you a lot more about the two of them, but I think if you ran them against each other, you could get a different result every time you put them in. I'll go with Billy Steve just in the fact I think she's got extra few spots, and if she's on the inside of Ariel, she might give her something to think about. But look, hopefully two of them get a clean run and we get to see them go head to head, and you know, this is the race everyone wants to see in the first round. So I'll go with Billy Steve anyway for this one.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 6 is Trap 5, Billy's Diva. Heat 7, we've got One Time Only in 1, Burgess Darlow in 2, Zafiro in 3, Ballymedina Roxy in 4, Vallegro in 5, and in 6, Palatine Leon. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I'll just side with Tommy O'Donovan's dog in red here, One Time Only. But It's not a race I'd have a bet on now at all. I think One Time Only probably wants to trap 3 or 4. He didn't even edge left from 5 and 6. Why is an inside seed a question? But there's at least 15 dogs on this stake have the same question mark over. It's a big issue with racing over here. 13 seeded dogs out of 78. It's just a fallacy. There's at least 25 dogs in the stake that should be seeded. It's people seeding out their best interests, but unfortunately might come back to haunt them when they have a dead railer on their right one night. One Time Only can get away with it here, though. It's Burgess Dale on 2 probably wants the middle as well. You move violently right from 3 and 4 in his last 2 starts. Zafir on 3 is a huge dog for Owen McKenna. The Ballymac Razzle line, which just consistently throws superstar after superstar. He was very impressive to the eye down in Tralee. He looks like a dog that's made for 550, 575 yards in Shelburne. But even the switch from Tralee to Limerick will play into his hands. It's a much bigger track. It's a lot better for strong runners. Tralee's a great learning circuit for pups, but it is a tight track. The bends are very tight, especially for big dogs. He could even come on again in the Kirby. He's a dog you would not be surprised a lot if he was to make the final. If he got a few draws near the fence, he's a strong runner. He'll do 28, 20 or 30 around here, in my opinion. I've no doubt about that. It's hard to make a case for the outside 3. Benamedina Roxy ran a huge race on debut on Newbridge, but from the Loughnane kennel, she would have been very well primed for that. They have very good records of school on their dogs and getting the job done on debut. Whether she's been down in Limerick again, it's another question. She ran 7 days ago today, so they might not have even squeezed the trial into her. The Allegro on 5 tried well last week. Had a few flashy runs in Limerick, but he's stepping up from A2 grade to top open grade here. I'd just be against him. He wants the inside as well, and that leaves Palatine Leon at 6 for Rachel Wheeler, whose last 2 sprint marks are extremely impressive, but an unraced dog coming into a heat of this nature, you can nearly put a line through them straight away, and if they win, you can put them in your notebook for the next year because they'll win plenty more open races. But it looks like he has early pace, but we don't have the luxury of seeing the trials. We don't know where he's going to run. He's seated middle, but that could quite easily be just because any debutant in Ireland is seated middle unless they clearly suggest otherwise. The rails to middle commented suggest he probably doesn't want 6 because they normally just put a standard middle on every unraced dog's solo, which is not the most helpful. But there's question marks in this heat about all these dogs' draws, so you'd want to side with the very good early pace dog of 1.
So Fitz's fancy for heat 7 is trap 1, One Time Only. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, I agree with Dylan. I think this is an interesting heat to say the least. From what I've seen, Burgess Dalo just completely dives right out of the box, and he's a funny dog. He seems to move like he moves right out of the box when he comes out, but then he dives to the fence and the bends, and then he's wide in the back. I just don't even think the dog knows where he wants to be. You know, he was bought. I think Kenny Glenn said in his preview at Ian Fortune that he thought he was going to be one of his best dogs for the year. I think he was bought of Yall off 29-12 debut or something, and he kind of disappointed me in his trials. I think he had 4 sprints, and I think he broke 19 seconds once, and you know, I just thought, you know, maybe he's not what he thought he was. But then he went to Tralee on the Juvenile Classic semi-final night, and he done 28. He did 28.60. I think it was the fastest run that night. I think the Juvenile Classic heats were 28.70 and 28.80. So his ability definitely is there. It's just whether he gets a run or not. But I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure where he does his run. He's kind of a funny dog at that, but when he puts it together, he's obviously very quick. I'm going to go with the top as well. I think he was in Juvenile Classic. He done 3:01. He bet some serious dogs. I would also question whether he's a bang railer where he wants to be in 1. I didn't really see where he wants to dive for the fence either. I just think a lot of people think that you can't win from the outside in Limerick. But I just look, there's just such little middle and wide seeds. I think you're worth taking the chance. But I think Vallegro as well for the Heffrons. Dylan said they were lucky in the first heat to have their 2 dogs put together, and he does want to go in, but I think it could be a bit of a messy race as well. He could get a lovely run. They've had great success in Limerick, the Heffernans, the country legend a few years ago that he's actually sister to the mother of them, higher level. He got to the Kirby final. He was third in the Kirby, and he was in the Ledger final as well. So he was a bit of a shock dog as well. So they're not used to. His trial the last day was really good, 28.66. I think on the trial session, you think he was the second fast, like the fastest or second fastest dog. So he can obviously run. Look, this is a hot heat. I think Safiro is a really, really fast dog. He's out Ballymac Razzle, who just breeds champion dogs. That's just what she does. I think she's bred 25 open class dogs. He's a pure stayer. He looks like a 575, 600-yard dog. You'd say probably Shelburne Park is his ideal track. You know, big type of dog, big straights. I just think 2 is going to cause him problems in the early yards, but it doesn't really bother Safiro for trouble because he's just such a strong runner that he seems to qualify. Like, it's going to be hard to knock him out the top 3 anyway. I just think the top could get a lovely Roma 2 moving off, so I'll go for Tommy Dovan's dog one time only. But I just think you probably learn a lot more about these dogs after the heat. Like, there's 1, 2, 3, and 5 can really run, so you learn a lot more about them after race.
So Bomber's fancy for Heat 7 is trap 1, one time only. Heat 8, we've got Fabulous Azura in 1, Nitro Anto in 2, Bocco's Belly in 3, Coolavani Lily in 4, Riverside Chester in 5, and in 6, Macho Pride. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I was made aware of a non-runner in this heat just before we started this preview. I'd been told trap 5, Riverside Chester, one of Graham Holland's 4 dogs in this heat, has been pulled out. I obviously haven't got it confirmed, but I'm not sure if there's any reserves for the Kirby. I don't think there is, to be honest, which means Macho Pride is an unbelievable dry out in 6 here. 4 will seek left. Bocco's Belly, I don't think anyone knows what he does anymore. He just go up dead straight from the wide. He edged off from the rails occasionally. Then he railed at other times. I suppose you could argue 3 might be a decent draw from. Nitro Anton 2 is a fast dog. He just got picked up by Ford last day in an A3. Again, it was an A3 in all but name. It was more like a Kirby trial stake. They're both exceptionally well-bred fast dogs. 2 April 19 webs. Fabulous Azura 1 was one of the most impressive dogs in the Clonmel race stake. It was an open novice 2-1 race, but it was the usual suspects down in Clonmel. The big trainers all brought their dogs down that weren't open novice 1. It was a strong stake. She was just beating the final. She'd won a few rounds prior to that and decent enough clocks now. She flew around the trial 28.45 2.5 weeks ago. So I suppose I'll side with the top, just on her form in the book, but 6 can run a big race here. He's liable to lead. He led Romeo Magico last week and he just held on. He's going to have an absolute solo with the outside here if there's no reserve in trap 5. So I suppose you could look to play 1 to beat 6 maybe. It's not really a race I'd be looking to bet in. Graham Holland probably holds all the aces. He has 3 dogs in the race.
So Fitz's fancy in Heat 8 is trap 1, Fabulous Azura. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Well, I wish Dylan had told me the 5 was non-runner maybe before. If he heard this morning, he could have texted me. But I don't know. Look, I think the top is she's Romeo Magico's sister actually. She was the best greyhound in Clonmel for me anyway. She was talking dog in the stake, and it was between her and the Jack's dog in the stake. But look, she's a young bitch as well. I think she's in August 19 and she's done 28.45. She's doing she's doing the best runs in Clonmel, so she's obviously a class act as well. She just adds to the great pool of bitches in the country at the moment. So I think it's hard to oppose her. I thought Gary Stilcock's dog ran well against Romeo Magico as well. He came off a sprinting on Dock. I think he done 21.30 off a 7.27 split or something, which is a serious run from the split line to the up the home straight, which we'd always equate to being a dog with massive back straight pace. So look, he's a fast dog as well. I just think the bitch 1 is going to be very hard to beat. I think she's already paced. I just don't see where. I think if she challenges him at all early, she's probably going to beat him. So I'll go with top, but she's going to be very short. She go off short odds favourite, so I wouldn't go be still inside. I wouldn't go in backing her, but I think she's hard to oppose.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 8 is Trap 1, Fabulous Azura. Heat 9, we've got Ballymac Cash Out in 1, Riora Smasher in 2, Agent Stanley in 3, Stormy Diego in 4, Epic News in 5, and in 6, All About Ted. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I think Ballymac Cash Out will win this quite handily. He's very well drawn too. Again, another dog ran from 6 on debut, and he looked perfectly at home from out in 6. Why he's inside the seat, God only knows. There's no point going down this rabbit hole every race. There's at least 2 dogs in every race that want to be further out than they are. Agent Stanley in 3's runs the wide in the middle seat his whole life. He's an inside seat, so I suppose you can make a case 2 and 3 are moving off. 4 is Bang left. 5 was a big early pace dog down in the Cork Run race stake. He was beaten 9 lengths by the top on his debut, so it's a huge ask to turn that around. But he wasn't staying a yard of the 5-5 down in that stake, and I have a feeling he can only have got a lot stronger. 28-31 in Limerick, you're not going to do that sort of run if you don't stay. I think he's definitely strengthened up his sprint trials. The marks in his card are brilliant the last few weeks. I think he's a player in the stake as well. This is arguably the heat with the most depth now, because All About Ted was my dog to follow for the year. Peter Cronin's dog for Willie Rigney and Richard Brown. Out of the good race bitch, Cronin had a navel. He put up a huge run behind Feudal Spirit on the Night of Stars, or the Winter Racing Festival, whatever it's called this year. And he was eye-catching in the novice, or not the novice stake, the pup stake that Ballymac Garrett and Billy's David dominated with Explosive Boy. He was probably the 3rd best dog in that with Explosive Boy. And that's form is clearly he stood up pretty well. He was doing 28-30s, they were doing 28-15s. Middle draw. It's one of them. If a middle seed was getting 4, it'd be perfect for him. Middle seed's getting 6. I really can't see it suiting him, to be honest. I thought it might suit him before the competition, but when I went back through his videos, he was moving in from 4 and 5. Epic News in 5 is probably a wide dog. To be honest, from his form in Cork, he went up straight from 5 and 6. I think they're all going to be heading out here. 2 and 3, 5 moving right, 4 and 6 heading left. Cash Out's undoubtedly the fastest dog in the race anyway. I thought Agent Stanley might lead the race. Cash Out's a bit tardy at box. His pickup probably isn't as good as some dogs in the stake. It's very good, but it's his backstrike pace. So just below top dogs to pieces. Tree's never been round. You know, it's if you drew this heat, you wouldn't be best pleased. There's 4 or 5 dogs in here. We'll do 28-50 at the very worst in Limerick. So I suppose it's not an easy introduction for any of them, but Cash Out's liable to be a 4 to 7 shot, that sort of price in this heat.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 9 is Trap 1, Ballymac Cash Out. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, I think this is a heat for watching more than betting, to be honest with you. It's a pretty hot heat. Look, Ballymac Cash Out is in his box and 1. He looks the best drawn dog in the race by a mile. He's a class act. He went to the Cork on race stake. Rumours said he broke 28 seconds or gone close to it in a trial in Cork before he'd even ran. So you knew his ability. He came out and Dylan said he bet Epic News 9 lengths that day in the first round. I think it was 28-12 or something he done. But he went to Shelburne Park then and he bet Coulivanny Chick in a 600-yard race who was in an English Derby final. So it tells you the calibre of dog he is. But he's kind of surprised a few people. People can't really work him out. He's led in a race in Shelburne. He's got picked up now. An AAO company over 525 and 550, mind you. But in his first year races in the 600-yard race, he didn't look like he tired. But he did 28:01 when he put it all together in a race in the Gold Cup. So look, he's a serious dog. There's no point trying to question him. He did 28:08 in the trial. As Dylan said, Tommy Bolton's going to have the track flying. If he gets out in the front, 27.95, it could easily go. This is the way he's just that good of a dog. Another Ballymac Razzle, Zafiro's brother, and the likes of Ballymac Taz. He's from Ballymac crossed the line, so he's just a special dog. Agent Stanley, Dylan never mentioned that he's by his trainer, Desi Gilbert, Skip Gilbert. So Skip's gone down with this dog. He got Orange on to the final of the Ledger last year. He only goes down with a good dog. To be fair to this dog, he's ran well in Shelburne the last few weeks. He's won plenty of races. This is a mile up in grade now for him, and he's never around the track, and he's probably seeded wrong. He's in trap 3. You know, I'd have him as a wide seed, to be honest with you as well. I think Dylan would agree with me there. I think he's seeded wrong, never around the track, up in grade. It's a big ask for him, to be honest with you. And if he doesn't lead, he goes out like a light. So I think he do well to qualify from this heat. Epic News is a funny dog. Packle Foyle definitely trained him in the Cork Unrace stake. I remember his name was definitely on him. I'm not sure if Packle Foyle still has him, if his name's just not on him, or the Kennedys have taken him back himself. It doesn't really matter either way, but they're both top class trainers. So I think, as Dylan has said, he's a really fast dog. You're going to see a lot of him during the stake. He's very lightly raced. He should improve. All About Ted, very fast pup at the end of last year. I know Dylan was mad about him, and a couple of other people are mad about him. He hasn't ran since December. He's coming off one sprint in Waterford. Now, Barry, you're well connected with the Crown and Kennel, and you know something that other people don't. You know, I couldn't go in and back All About Ted. If I knew All About Ted was doing fast trials, you'd say you take a chance with a big price. But no, just not off a 300-yard sprint in Waterford. Ballymac Cash, it's going to go off very short. So I go for Cashew to pick a winner, but I think Epic News and All About Ted. And if Agent Stanley handles the track first time, you know, it's a really hot heat. So if the four of them happen to go through in the stake, you could see them winning heats during the competition.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 9 is Trap 1, Ballymac Cash Out. Heat 10, we've got Ballymac Fair One in 1, Corbrack Prince in 2, Angry Tornado in 3, Scarlet O'Meara in 4, The Machine in 5, and then Hello Mikey in 6. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I'm in love with Hello Mikey's makeup in this race, which means I have to side with him. This is a very, very tricky contest. The Ballymac Fair One dog in 1, obviously out of Ballymac Scala. I think that makes him a half brother to Ballymac Cooper. He has 17.49 done in Tralee, which is ridiculous for an unraced dog. There's not many that could do it. There's a reason they brought him to the Kirby. I imagine he's been around the track at least once or twice since. He's not had a trial for a month now. But again, you'd really need a gun to my head to back an unraced dog in a Kirby. He could be anything. He could win this. He could come out and win the seat by 5 lengths in 28-20. You wouldn't be surprised, but it's not for me on this night. He could be a runner in the stake. He's undoubtedly going to be a runner in classics in the future. The Corbrick dog in 2 for Gleason has a few serious sprint runs on his card. Sprint marks even. They're in trials. He set very good fractions last week in Shelburne, and he stopped to nothing on the run-in. He looks like a dog that, if he comes on the yard, he might just be a big player in the Bar 1 sprint come August now. He really looked like that sort of dog in an H3 in Shelburne last week. He's all about early pace. He's mad for the fence. His first 3 strides were all left last week in Shelburne. Look, you want to be out in front of Limerick now. It's definitely not a track I'd want to be coming from behind him. So if he could lead the inside here, he has a chance. 3 and 4 have an awful lot of work to do from what's on their card. Obviously, 3's a very young dog for Peter Cronin, 28.80. He stumbled at the boxes. It's not on the comments. He ran 2 nights ago. I watched his race this morning. He definitely came down on his back end after a stride, picked himself up well, flew down the back, took off coming home. His future could well be over further. I could make no real case at all for Trap 4, to be honest. It looks like a local entry. Fair play to them for putting the money up. Hopefully they can go a few rounds. We always want to see the locals going well when they put their money down, then their stakes like these. Obviously, he's an A2 dog. You could always take the easy option and run an A2 next Saturday, and he'd probably have a very good chance at winning one. But anyone that puts their money down earns any sort of respect that they get. The Machine at 5, 28-16 last week in a trial. Now, I'll be perfectly honest, I didn't think he had the colour of that in him. He ran in the Puppy Derby at Toaster. He made the final. Obviously, it was well documented his troubles trying to get to the track that day. I imagine there were a few speeding tickets involved, making Kenlon on time that night now. But you'll have a much more leisurely journey now down to Limerick on Saturday night from Newry. The Matthews have as good a record as any trainer in the country down there in the Kirby. They won it with Cable Bay, and I believe they won it the year before as well. The name escapes me. Sports Hero Wide dog. I never had this dog down the same mould as either of them. Although you could argue people didn't have Cable Bay down. The machine's a very similar dog to Cable Bay now. His future undoubtedly lies over further. From trap 3 weeks ago, he looked desperate for the fence. He just kept edging across the whole way. He's a big 80-pound dog out in 5. That leaves Hello Mikey with as good a draw as you'll find on the card on Saturday night. He really caught the eye in the first round Leicester Cup. He led Billy Steve everywhere by the last 20 yards. He probably wants 4 or 5. He ran very well last week from a horrific draw and 1. Just missed the corner, took the seat off him. Obviously wanted the chance at the Kirby. They've seen the light, decided the middle seat's the best option for this dog. He's in trap 6 with a dead railer and 5. The machine's undoubtedly the fastest dog in this race, but I'm happy to oppose him on Hello Mikey, who I think can lead. And the first bend in Limerick's very tight. The machine wouldn't be the best early pace dog. You wouldn't wish it on any dog now, but there's potential for there to be trouble in this race with an early pace dog in 2, wanting the rails and an unraced dog in 1, and then five railers in the race. So you'd want to be out in front, and I think that's where 6 will be on the outside.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 10 is trap 6. Hello, Mikey. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, look, I mostly agree with Dylan what he said. Top's an interesting dog. He's a half brother to McCormack. He was obviously supposed to go to the unrace stake in Tralee. Probably just got an injury or slight injury just before the stake. They've obviously answered him up. They didn't want him to miss out on the Kirby, but look, it's a big ask for any pup to go into the Kirby unraced. I do think this is a heat though that look, to be fair, look, it's a proper heat as well. I'm just looking at it again, but the machine, I agree with Dylan. I was kind of shocked when he done 28.16 last week. Look, he made the Puppy Derby final in Toaster, which means there's always a bit of class about him. Like, from going from Newry to Toaster, fair play to Matthews, their game. I think he was an A2 dog or something when they first went over with them, I remember when I seen them, I didn't even know who the machine was when the Puppy Derby entries come up. I seen him as an Irish entry and I looked him up and he was an A2 dog, and I was a bit surprised. But to be fair, he done it with Innocent Times, went over to the English Derby as well. I think he made the semi-final and won the consolation final, and he was A2 when he went over as well. So look, it just shows you he done 28.16. He's obviously a very fast dog. He's a half brother to Antigua Fire. He looks destined to be like him over 6 bends, possibly even 8 bends. I agree with Dylan. I think 6 is a great draw. He was seeded wrongly last week, and he was quite impressive in the Easter Cup. Like, Billy Steve only caught him just outside the line. I think she bet him just under a length. He led the whole way, so he's obviously got great early pace. I just think Limerick's also a track that if you're not in front, you can easily find trouble. The first bend is very tight in Limerick, and if the machine if he doesn't come out of the box, if he does a 140 split or 135 like he's done, it's going to be hard for him to get a clear run. If 6 is away and gone, a big price he's worth taking on. So look, the machine's probably definitely the fastest dog in the race, and he's going to be hard to knock out. But I wouldn't back him at odds on, which he probably is going to be in this race. So I'll agree with him. They'll probably go with Hello Mikey in this heat.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 10 is trap 6. Hello, Mikey. Heat 11, we've got Barney's Road in 1, Dark Ava in 2, Adamant Best in 3, Bruno in 4, Bombardier in 5, and in 6, Malog Stormzy. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I'll be perfectly honest, I couldn't really make a case for any dog in this race. I thought it was the trickiest contest on the card. I've had 2 or 3 people now tell me Pat Buckley thinks Barney's Road's best dog in the Kirby, which will come as a surprise to virtually everyone in Greyhound racing, considering Sing Along Sally's a juvenile classic winner. It's a very bold statement coming out from Kappa White, put it that way. How true it is obviously under scrutiny as well. We'll find out very quickly on Saturday night now. But if that is the case, he can really put his marker down in this heat because it's not the strongest heat. Pat has the 2 leading dogs in the heat. Bombardier in 5. He's destined to be a 750 dog in my opinion. He's a trapper. He really lacks it to halfway and then he flies home up the running. He's done that a few times in Limerick. He's liable to do it again here. Bruno in 4. I'd be honest, he's an August 19 dog again for the comer, for instance, Peter Cronin. I'd hazard a guess what's on his card is all that dog's ever done. He's looked like a dog that's schooling on the track effectively. He's schooling in public, like he's doing 230s out the box, which is desperate. He's absolutely tearing home. He's getting knocked around and it doesn't bother him at all. He's an 80-pound dog. He's got a few bad bumps on the corner and just runs through them. He was eye-catching behind Corbrack Prince last week. He flew home. Track was back a long way. He did 29.13. He probably would have done 28.80 in a solo. He's a dog that could take a massive jump up in this competition now. He's going to, obviously on August 19, it's a huge ask. But he's going to come forward every night. I've no doubt about that at all. If he could just get some trapping together, he's as strong a dog as there is. At his sort of price range, 16.57 in water for the qualifying it's quite frankly a ridiculous sprint. It's not on the same run all about Ted, an experienced race dog has done so. The Adamant dog in 3 for Rainford, John Rainford, the Adamant man down in Limerick. He has savage pickup. I mean, he's not a trapper at all, and he's leading every single race he's put in. You'd love to see him around Romford, put it that way, because he missed a half stride and he's just gone. Then he led Bombardier about 6 lengths last week and he's beat 6 lengths. He's not the strongest at all. Mark Robinson's dog in 2, Dark Ave, is a very tight railer. Barney's Road has a wide comment in one of his trials, so 3 could slip the field here. 4 and 5 are very strong runners. The top's coming with a huge reputation. You know, it's to the master any of these, to be honest, but it's an intriguing contest. There's a few dogs that can come on a lot in the coming weeks from this race, as there is in every heat, I suppose.
So what's your fancy, Dylan, for Heat 11?
I suppose if pushed, if 3 was double figure prices, is worth a few quid because I think he's a certainty to lead. He's probably about 5 lengths off the pace with a few of these though.
So Fitz's tentative
commit to one,
selection is trap 3, Adamant Best. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting heat as well, to be fair. The Barney's Road dog, there's big talk about him. Lads are saying Pat Buckley thinks he's the best pup in the kennel. As Dylan said, when you've the likes of Sing Along Sally and Knocking the Bull Sid and Glenn Garbale, you know, this must be some pup. I'm surprised he actually went in on a race because he's had 2 solo 525s, like, and there was a couple of unraced stakes the last few weeks in Limerick. I would have thought maybe he would have entered them up, but I think he's 0-1, so I don't think maybe there was any races for him. If I had him, I'd be delighted with this heat. I just don't think it's the strongest heat overall. So if he might get to show some of his bit like what the ability he has. I really liked Bombardier dog. I thought you ran great last week. Mind you though, he's actually a good trapper, but he doesn't really go anywhere for the first few yards, and then as Dylan says, from halfway home he just goes into another gear. The Adamant dog is unbelievable for about 350 yards, and then he goes out like a light. Like as Dylan says, he absolutely destroyed dogs to the third bit, like well, not even the third bend, half to the halfway, then the back straight, and then he just collapsed. Like he just looks like a Romford type dog, a Crayford type dog. Look, I think Bombardier has a lot of class. He's 28. He's a 28-40 or 50 dog, in my opinion. I think he's a dog who could go a couple of rounds. You know, he's going to be hard to knock out. I think Barney's Road, I think he's getting a grand heat to show what he's capable of. You know, he'll show pace in the race, not necessarily win for a pup in his debut, but if Pat Buckley thinks it's that much from, you know, you're going to probably see what he's talking about. But I'll go with Bombardier, just the fact that he is raced and he looks at the best form in this race, and I'll go with Bombardier.
So Bomber's selection in Heat 11 is trap 5, Bombardier. Heat 12, we've got Burgess Glengart in 1, Deadly Tornado in 2, Tie Rap Luke in 3, Droopy's Fittest in 4, Broke with Hope in 5, and in 6, Viper's Buzz. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I can just about make a case for Vipers wasn't 6 at the price here. It's a messy enough heat now. Burgess Glengar has missed the corner a few times from the inside. This trial was uninspiring, to say the very least. 29-20, it's probably 15 lengths off what could win a Kirby, but again, there could be any amount of excuses there. He could have got stuck in the box, could have hit the rail. There's no information given on the comments. There's no splits, so we're left in the dark a bit there. And his Tralee form, he'd be a huge runner in this from a decent enough draw now. Deadly Tornado in 2 was impressive down in Clonmel. He's a very fast starter. Fight as far as he wants to go. He won a week A1 in Shelburne. That's where you get a week A1, but it was probably the worst A1 I've seen in a long time. It was one of them old-fashioned races that were just made up for a pup. Now he got trap 1. He was probably a 4 to 9 shot in the race. He won 5.5 lengths, but if he didn't win 5.5 lengths in that race, he wouldn't be entered for the Kirby. Last week he just got caught a little bit edging across. Tyrap Luke in 3. He's a local dog. He's been running well. He's not shown enough to win a race of this class. Again, June 19 dog. He can take a huge step forward and put a 28.70 up at some point. Whether it's this race, the jury will be out. Droopy's Fittest in 4 is interesting. He's an extremely fast dog. He really caught the eye in Clonmel. People's notebooks. Not so much for his runs, for the fact that he wants to be inside the rail. He doesn't want trap 1. He wants to start in the left-hand side of the boxes. I mean, he can just clean his field out here for 5 and 6. 5 is a lightly raced dog coming from Yall. He was just left for dead last week, to be honest. Looked like the stepping grade just caught him out. He won an A5 after being beaten in A5. He's probably a very fast dog, but it might just take him a few goes in grade to get up to speed. That's normally the case with pups. He's out of the Great Bitch Boom time from about 3 or 4 years ago. I think she won a Christmas Oaks for Puppy Oaks. Obviously a Cork bred dog, done its run in Cork. Daddy's Viper's Buzz at 6. His back straight pace is fantastic for a race of this caliber. His splits are desperate. He's a very fast dog when he puts it together. I thought he's just being presented with a draw here that he's stepping back into pup grade, and while the Kirby's very hot, some of them A1s and A2s in Shelburne, they're just relentless for pups now. And if you have a bad draw, again, he's not a very good trapper. They can just catch him out, but stepping into pup grade might just help him. Everything might just happen that split second slower for the first 10 yards. And if he finds himself in any sort of position out the second bend, he's probably the strongest runner of these. He's going to get a nice run out wide. He's not been around Limerick, to my knowledge, so that's a negative, but he could be completely overlooked in the market as he's only coming into this race with A1 and A2 form. And people still have a perception that Shelburne's running fast. The reality is the night he did 30.01, that probably would have been a 29.50 run on what the track was when Tommy Walton was still doing the track. So he is a big runner.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 12 is trap 6, Viper's Buzz. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, look, I agree with Dylan as well. I think it's a 3-dog heat. I think it's between 2, 4, and 6. Now, to be fair, I know a lot about the 6-dog. Guy Kieran Hicks trains him. He's an up-and-coming trainer. He lives about 10 minutes away from me in Drogheda. This dog has been doing some serious solo trials in Shelburne Park on a Monday. He's doing some proper open class AO runs. He's just not a great trapper, but when he gets loose, this is a seriously fast dog. He got loose. He just got the corner in the 550, but he really ragged the dogs when he got down the back straight, and there was a bit of trouble in behind. But as Dylan said, 30.01 on the night. He's never been around the track, and they're taking a chance putting him in. they were thinking about the 600-yard in Shelburne, and I just said to him, look, I think you should try the Kirby just as he's a 19 dog, and he's actually AAO. I think there's only 19 AAO dogs of the 78 dogs in the stake, and he's one of them. So look, he's going to be a big price, and he's not really known to much people, but I think if he qualifies through this heat, you're going to see a lot of this dog, and he could go a few rounds and put a few fast runs, and I hope he goes well for Kieran in the heats. He's 28.50 on his card in Cork. If you actually look back on his card, I know Kieran went down to the unraced stake in Cork, the Ballymac Cashew and Deadly Destroyer were in, and he put him in with a dog that's AAO he has around Shelburne Park at the moment, Amazing Borna. Now, he punched above his weight 2 weeks ago, but Viper's Buzz can beat him 5 and 6 lengths every time you put them in together. So, look, he's a fast dog, and I think he's well drawn, as Dylan said. He's a middle seed. 4, it's like a Dear Jet Sydney or a Buckles John Joe. He just doesn't seem to go straight. He just goes left if he's not in 1. I think he could really make the race for Viper's Buzz. The 2 dogs are very fast dogs as well. He was running the unraced stake in Clonmel. He's got already pace. I just think if he comes out with 4 could just clean the field. I'm biased probably for the local knowledge, but I'll go for Viper's Buzz anyway.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 12 is Trap 6, Viper's Buzz. The final heat, Heat 13, we've got Mind How You Go in 1, Malog's Marley in 2, Jack's Little Thing in 3, Scarty Yank in 4, Ballymahim Kim Boy in 5, if I can pronounce that, and in 6, Salmic Rusty. Fitzy, what do you fancy?
I like 2 dogs in this heat. I think they'll both go a long way in this competition, but I suppose just from the benefit of his inside draw, Jack's Little Thing can win this race. He won the unraced stake down in Clonmel. He won it quite comfortably. He won it 6 lengths. He led in the corner, just pushed Murderlahy's dog out, just gave him a shoulder barge right in the crown of the bend, and he was gone. He's phenomenal from 2 to 3. He's done 28.50 in 2 trials in Limerick. It's not a long stretch to say he'll do 28, 30 or 40 in this race. Scardy Yank in 4 was brilliant last week or 2 weeks ago even. Beat the blast off Harry Dog at Paul Hennessy's 8 lengths. He just bombed the box and he was gone. He's had a strange path through his career for a June 19 dog. He started off as a very young dog in Tralee in December. You might argue if he was in different hands, they might have waited for the big run race in Tralee with a dog of this potential. Wait until he was 20, 21 months to give him his debut. Instead, he went into an unraced stake in December. Wasn't an ideal time to give a dog a debut. He struggled a bit in the conditions. He was beat by a good winner that Julie Bates now has hosted Sydney. He then won an A6 by 9 lengths. Absolutely housed up on a desperately slow track. He showed bundles of pace behind Medusa last week. Medusa last month, and then he destroyed a good Kirby trial stake, built 8 lengths 2 weeks ago. So I think 3 and 4 are the 2 dogs that to take from this heat that can go a long way in the Kirby. Pat Guilfoyle's dog in 6, Salmic Sunset, out of what was a very, very talented brood and Mystical Mall when she was on the track at Shelburne. There's a few on that litter that looked decent, but he was eye-catching in Galway. On his 2 starts, he came down to Shelburne, probably hadn't had many goes around the place, and he just got completely lost. He'd have been well schooled around Limerick, being from the Guilfoyle kennel. But this is a huge step up. 3 and 4 are serious early place dogs. Whichever leads out of them 2 can win the heat. The Mallows Marley dog in 2 is, in my opinion, just gone off the boil a bit. He did 28.38 at the back end of last year in Clonmel, but it wasn't what you'd associate 28.38 in Clonmel in December. I thought the track was running far and away better than you'd ever see it in December. Now, taking nothing away from the run, you still have to go up and post the clock, but I thought he might just be tapped for a bit of tout to the corner by 3 or 4, and he definitely won't be back running them. The top's an interesting dog coming down from the north. Did a big run in 2nd behind a very fast sprinter on debut. Did 18.89 in Shelburne. It'll just be interesting to see how he goes. Now, the fact they put him into the stakes suggests he might have a bit about him. It's really not a big price. He might end up in England in a few weeks now if he shows a bit of talent in the seat. So again, it's another heat with a few lurkers in there, but I'll just side with Jack's Little Thing on the fact he's inside Scardy Yank.
So Fitz's fancy for Heat 13 is Trap 3, Jack's Little Thing. Bomber, what do you fancy?
Yeah, I actually think this is a really, really good heat. When I first looked at it, I just thought, oh, the Jack's dogs are certainly, that kind of way. But when you actually study the dogs and study the card, the depth, there's some serious depth in this heat. I actually think it's one of the most overall balanced heat. Look, the Jack's dog won the unrace stake in Clonmel. Dylan said he was quite impressive. He's just a class act. He done 28.50 in Limerick in the trial. He was the fastest at that session. The Scarty Yank dog ran well. He went straight into AAO. He did 28.55. You can't really run it down. He's obviously a really promising dog as well. The Mallogs Marley dog's a funny dog. I actually don't remember him doing 28.30 at Clonmel at the time, and I'd usually be looking out for results and be marking them down. But I looked at his card, as Dylan said, he's kind of, I wouldn't say gone off the boil, but he's just not repeated that level of run that he has since the 28.30 run at Clonmel. But if you actually look back at the opposition he's ran again, like he ran against Skylight Blake, who broke the Turbine clock in Youghal the last day, and he ran against him in Cork last week, and he came for the next parish nearly to catch him, so short ahead. So he's obviously a pretty talented dog as well. He's in a tough heat here. The top dog is very interesting. I think they're just taking a chance coming down with him. Dylan will probably start rolling his eyes, but he's actually from a course and breeding background. That's what interests me about him. It's probably why he's so much early pace. I know the mother well. She ran in Drummo Park. She was an open sprinter. He's 1889 Shelburne, 1670 in Derry qualifying trial. It's as good as early pace as you could probably have for sprints and that. So look, he's coming up a mile in class, but Dylan says he's a dog that could be really made for the tracks in England. I don't know any, there's nothing on his card about 4-bend trials or anything but look, he's obviously done something that's making them come to the stakes, so he's obviously a fair dog. The 5 dog, he was also in the unrace stake in Tralee, so I also took his first qualifying trial. He's beaten a length by Swords Maestro, who's one of the fancies to win the stake at the final, so that tells you much his ability. He's also a Sonic dog. He could be anything as well. And then Packet Foils dog in 6, Salmic, he always keeps a good dog for him for that syndicate. He's out in Mystical Mall, who was a really fast bitch. Dylan always said to me if she could turn left at the first bend, she'd probably do 28.10 at Shelburne. She's by good news. I just think there's some overall really good depth in this heat, and you could see some really future stars. I don't think, as the stake goes on or whatever after the stake, you could be seeing these dogs in the classics or different competitions, and I just think overall it's a really strong heat. But look, I'll go with Jack's. Just the fact he's in his, I think he wants to be in. I don't think he really wants to be on the rails, but I think he's happier in 3 and 4. Look, they could have put a middle seat on him, but I don't think he wants to be in 6 either. He likes to be in 2, 3, or 4. I just think, look, he's got the experience in the class that he'll probably come out on top of this heat. But there's probably a couple to watch out for in the future.
So Bomber's selection for Heat 13 is Trap 3, Jack's Little Thing. Right, lads, we've got about a minute left. I need your anti-post picks. Dylan, give you about 20 seconds.
I back Ballymac Ariel at 10, 9 and 8 for the stake, purely on the fact she's a middle seed. If they take that off, I wouldn't back her 25 to 1 to win it. And the Romeo Magico is the fastest 150, 125, 180, 66 dog, 66 to 1 shot you'll ever see in a Greyhound anti-post list. He should be about 28 to 1, and I'll just keep betting him at them prices.
Bomber, what do you fancy?
I'll go for Clona Bolt as Bo's pick, and for a dark horse, I'll go for Viper's Buzz. And as Dylan says, Romeo Magico has to be the fastest 150 to 1 shot I've ever seen in a classic, or I'll go for him as well. So I'll go for Clona Bolt, Romeo Magico, and Viper's Buzz.
Really appreciate you coming on, lads. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Davey.
Cheers, Davey.